happening with your favorite KFAN shows. You can make your voice heard on the Brad, Sean Bryant KFAN text line. Just let us know what you have to say by texting your message to 64686. That is 64686. Standard text message and data rates apply.
Never a better time for that liner, because whenever Brett Blakemore and myself, Max Fuller, are lucky enough to grace these here airwaves, we like to call whatever show we are on the People's Show. We love talking to the listeners, interacting with the listeners. So you got a question for us. This is a brand new segment that we're debuting. We call it the People's Portion, basically an Ask Us Anything style segment, a fan line for just pretty much anything, a universal fan line. So if you want to call in, 800-320-5326. We got plenty of text on the text line, 646-86, asking questions. We just like interacting with the listeners, and we like you want to be a part of the show. You want to help dictate what we talk about sometimes, because clearly some people were not happy that we opened the show talking about the Nothing But Ass League. So you tell us, you're the expert. You tell us what you want us to talk about. First question on the text line: is there any way to dial Max back 2 clicks? No, that's not possible. Ask Brett Blakemore. This is not a bit. This is who I am.
Where is that? Is that on there?
Yeah, it says, is there any way to dial Max back 2 clicks? This is really who I am in real life. I'm not putting on a front for the radio. I'm not like putting on, I'm really this loud and obnoxious in real life. My whole family is like this.
I've tried to pot you down 2 clicks and you just get 2 clicks louder.
Exactly.
So
I can sense it. I can sense it. So I apologize for having fun and enjoying my job, but no, I cannot be dialed back. That is just who I am. Question from Sean Evanson on the text line. If you were a professional wrestler, what is your finishing move? And if you can explain what your character might be, that's awesome. I'm assuming both of us were huge wrestling rubes. Well, my finishing move, I'd probably have to do so. I want to do something crazy. Like off the top rope.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not capable of that, but it would be a lot more fun, Like, I'd probably try to do like a shooting star press or something. Like I wouldn't be able to do it. It'd take me a long time to learn it, but I would do something like that. Or Sweet Chin Music ode to one of my favorite wrestlers of all time,
the
Shawn
super
Michaels.
kick is a solid
Exactly,
move.
right. Yeah, like that's always a great move. Man, my character, I'd for sure be a heel. No doubt about it. I'd be a heel. It'd be a lot more fun to like just, chastise the crowd, make fun of people, especially in today's day and age. I feel like we have a more generally accepted idea of like the dynamics in wrestling, so people can be more heelish without taking it too far and getting real life problems. Like back in the day when everybody,
MJF's a real heel.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing. It's like that's the best wrestlers in wrestling are the ones that make you go, wait, was that scripted? Was that actually part of the bit? Like when he's like, throwing drinks on kids in the stands and stuff like that. Like that. I mean, obviously not that specifically would be fun, but just making fun of every city that you're in and everything like that. I would for sure be the villain. What about you, Brett Blakemore? What's your finishing move and what would your character be?
I kind of play a heel as it is, being a Packers fan. I don't even have to try. I just have to wear green and gold and I get the heat just from that. I think it'd be funny though if it was like a local promotion, like a promotion around Minnesota, wrestling. To just be literally your only gimmick is just a Packers fan. You get booed out of the building. It'd be easy. You could even go in there and like smile and wave and high five kids, and you would still be the most over heel in the promotion.
For sure.
Just by doing that.
I went to a local wrestling show down at First Ave earlier this week on Sunday at First Wrestling. The guy was introduced from Green Bay. Nobody even needed to know anything else. It just boo, boo, and then Green Bay sucks. Green Bay sucks chants just rain out. That's all you got to do is just be from Green Bay, and you're already a heel.
Mr. Kennedy, no chance.
Right.
Here, no chance. So finishing move, I don't know.
Finishing move, yeah. What would the finishing move be?
Here's an idea going off the Packers bit. What if, I literally just came up with this, it might not be good. What if it was just like a splash, like Ultimate Warrior, but you just called it the Lambo Leap?
The Lambo Leap? Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah, that would be great. The Lambo Leap and Brett Blakemore wins.
Or it could be a splash off the top rope. Who knows?
Yeah, that actually is a good idea. You might want to copyright that for any Packers themed wrestlers out there. We got another question on the text line, 763 guy. He says, a hootie hoo. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the hootie hoo. What is a good way to get into radio? And I would have to say, man, is just start doing it. If you can get a microphone at your house, Just start doing it and make sure, but I will preface it by saying this, make sure that you have more than 1 or 2 episodes worth of things to say. I think a lot of people think they want to get into radio or podcasting, and then they do a podcast or they do a radio show and they're like, geez, that actually takes a lot more work than I thought, and they don't actually have as much to say as they thought they did. So make sure you have enough to say, you have a subject that you want to touch on, that you want to break into. And just start doing it, man. There's so many cool volunteer radio stations around the Twin Cities that I got started with. I was lucky enough to get my start over at Radio K at the U. But there's so many radio stations that you can get your start in around the Twin Cities, man. You just got to start doing it because it's one of those things that you're never going to be able to gauge how good you are or how successful you could be at it until you start doing it. What would you say to someone that wants to break into radio, Brett Blakemore? Not that we're at the bottom of the totem pole.
We're still trying to break in.
Exactly. We're still trying to break in, but what would you say to someone trying to get their start in radio?
I would say know how to ride the line between persistent and annoying.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Because you have to be persistent.
Yeah.
You can't be annoying.
You got to be available.
There's a line there. And you say yes to everything. And
100%.
Get your foot in the door by any means necessary.
However that you can do it. And if you
do a podcast too.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd recommend that.
Do
just
a podcast.
Even if no one listens.
Right.
Like does anyone listen to the London Club Council with me and Robbie Rosenhaus where we talk Premier League? Cheap plug. It's free on the iHeartRadio app.
Who?
Probably not. Who? So, but we do it because we love it and because it makes us better at talking.
Exactly. So just even if nobody, and that's actually better if nobody's listening because then you have room to improve without people texting the text line and telling you that you suck like they do to me when I'm on major market airwaves, which is fine. As long as they're listening, that's fine. That's if you like me, if you hate me, at least I'm making you feel something. So I appreciate everybody out there listening. We got a whole bunch of texts in the text line. We're going to probably have to turn this into a 2-segment bit. We got Richard Colon, Crazy Legs Colon, around the corner to talk to us about breakdancing. We're going to answer John from Shakopee's call first. John, what's good, my man?
Hey, I thought you and Coach Finch were good.
Hey, thanks, man.
I thought you were friends.
We are.
Then why are you calling for his job?
What are you talking about? I would never do such a thing.
You were talking about drafting Bronny James and bringing LeBron here. What has LeBron done every stop he's made?
Won a championship?
Gotten the coach fired.
Also,
got to think about the repercussions, Max.
Yeah, I guess
I would rather keep Coach Finch than have LeBron come here and win a championship.
Okay.
We finally got this organization turned around to where they're not crybabies, and you want to bring the biggest one to Minnesota?
I mean,
come on, Max.
Biggest crybaby is a hell of a tournament, man. Appreciate you, John. Obviously some of the times that doesn't work out and the coaches get fired and whatnot. But Chris Finch, I think he's solid over here. And first of all, if LeBron James came here, we'd win a championship. Nobody's getting fired after that. It's going to be nothing but a party and parades all through the streets of Minneapolis. But I guess he's got a point. Yeah, I like to keep Finchy around. I'm definitely not calling for his job, but that guy was a little aggressive, John from Shakopee was. But
he was ready to go.
He was ready to go. He had the gun loaded, the clip, and he was ready to fire some bullets. We got a whole bunch of texts on the text line for more questions. We're going to have to do that a little bit later in the show because coming up next, we got Richard Crazy Legs Coron, one of the innovators and OGs of breakdancing, here to talk to us about the history of the sport and the addition of breakdancing at the Summer 2024 Olympics. We'll do all of that and more coming up next on The Fan.
Get ready to laugh the night away when comedian Russell Peters heads to Treasure Island. Don't miss this hilarious and unapologetic comic when he takes the stage in the Island Event Center November 29th. Tickets on sale now. You can get yours at TICasino.com.
Max Fuller, a.k.a. Max Keel O'Neill, a.k.a. Leonardo DiMaxbrio, filling in for Paul Allen on 9 to noon alongside Brett Blakemore. The 2024 Summer Olympics is set to get underway in just a little over a month. And one of the newest and most exciting additions to the summer lineup is the sport of breaking. Now, we're not talking about Breaking Bad here. Nobody's competitively cooking meth or anything like that. We're talking about the sport and art form more commonly known as breakdancing. And who better to discuss breakdancing with than one of the true innovators and groundbreakers of the art form. Our next guest is one of the founders of the Rocksteady crew, one of the first and foremost breakdancing crews in all of America. He is the inventor of more than a couple of moves and a true pioneer in the dancing sphere. Pablo Picasso used to paint pictures with his hands, but Richard Crazy Legs Coron paints them with his feet. Crazy Legs, I really appreciate you joining us today, man. It's an honor to get to talk to you. I got to ask off the top, is there a story behind the nickname Crazy Legs, or is it just because you had mad dance moves since you were young?
There's definitely a story, but I'm going to say one thing. The fact that you had a Russell Peters commercial on before we went on, and Russell Peters is one of the most diehard hip-hop heads I know, was pretty cool. It's pretty cool, and that's one of my boys, so
oh, no way.
That felt good. It'd be like, oh, wow, I'm following my man Russell right now. But yes, there is a story. I got it when I was in grade school, middle school, and a girl by the name of Arlene Rosario, a Puerto Rican girl, saw me dancing in the auditorium after school, and she was like, ooh, he got some crazy legs. And she was captain of the cheerleaders, so at that point, all the cheerleaders started calling me Crazy Legs, and then we did this rendition of the show Grease as a play in my junior high school, and I actually started breaking on the break part of the song Hand Drive.
No way.
And that just lit everything up in the school, and then everyone started calling me Crazy Legs.
Yeah, especially if the cheerleaders are calling you Crazy Legs. If the cheerleaders are calling you anything, you just got to go by that nickname, right?
That's like the ultimate cosign in junior high school. You got the cheerleaders, boom, you win.
Right. Now, you kind of been around dancing your whole life, Crazy Legs, but like what inspired you to start breakdancing? Like what was it like the moment you first saw breakdancing with your own eyes?
Well, when I first saw breaking, it was different from the first time, which was a year later, when I went to an actual park jam in the Bronx on Crotona Avenue. And I was a shorty, 10 years old, 11 years old, and everything was very much grand to me because I'm a little kid. And
right.
I'm thinking like, oh, wow, like this is great. Like people are competing. This doesn't cost me any money. There's music. There's fun. There's competitiveness. And I was just blown away. I feel like I was born in 66, but I came to life in 77 because of what was eventually to be called hip-hop had blown me away. And so for me, it was, I think, a matter of the conditions. You know, when you're living in the hood, you're poor, and there isn't anything much out of struggle, so you got to create with what's there. And that was a good, unfortunately, those struggles were a great environment for creativity.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. And you mentioned it, just being poor and getting to do something that's free. I know all about that, man. You always try to find free entertainment, free things to do. And then you stumble upon two blossoming art forms in the park, in breaking and in hip hop. And they obviously go hand in hand. But and we'll get to that in a little bit. But you were around breaking basically since its inception, since its infant days. What were those early days of breaking culture like? Where did you do it? Who was doing it? Et cetera, et cetera.
So my cousin Lenny Land, who's a Puerto Rican cat, of course, when he brought me to that park jam, my first jam experience was, there was a brother named Little Angel, who was a Puerto Rican DJ, and there was a lot of Latinos in this particular part of the Bronx. So my initial introduction to hip-hop, it was a black and brown experience for me. I'm not getting into percentages or anything like that, but we all shared the same hood, the same economic status, getting arrested by the same police. So there was a really dope, and it's crazy I say dope, but it was a bonding that happened between black and Latino people. So the exchange between cultures was really dope. There would be times when, our neighbors who are African American come over and they're learning Southside, and then we're going over to their place and we're learning how to do the bus stop. So there was a really special dynamic between the relationships of black and Latino people in New York. It was just, so that made for a great camaraderie, an exchange of ideas and talent, and we partied together. So growing up in that environment when you really as a kid are looking to do some sports and you can't afford those sports activities, and you jump into this whole second kind of family of I don't want to say street life, but community life. Because people say street and they start giving it a negative connotation because it's usually associated with black and brown. But for me, it was all community. And I think we unwittingly created something that, of course, we all know became a multi-billion-dollar-a-year industry.
Right.
But it was done out of innocence. And I can't say that we sat there and thought it out and said, hey, we're going to create hip-hop, because when you look at the ages of the people who were doing that, you know, and what we were facing socially and economically, kids weren't thinking about those things. Those thoughts were for the adults, unless you were like a special outlier.
Right. I was actually going to ask you about that, because when you're around it at that age and you're just seeing what it's becoming, there's no way that anyone would have thought that that hip-hop and breaking would be where they're at today, right?
No, and look, the climate of New York at that time, you had the blackout of 77, you had the Yankees winning, going on becoming a dynasty, you know, back and forth with the Dodgers and the Red Sox and all that. You had the 44 caliber killer, Son of Sam, who had everyone on edge because of the murders that were going on in the city. And you know, New York was pretty much bankrupt at the time. So it was it's amazing how something so great could come out of such a bad situation.
Right. Seriously. It's as Tupac once put it, it's the rose that grew from concrete. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes that negative situation and that negative environment can create something truly beautiful. And that's really what you guys did, innovating hip hop and innovating breaking. Like I said in the intro, you're one of the OG members of the Rocksteady crew. And back then, I would imagine there was a lot of crews roaming around the streets of New York. I'm sure you ran into other crews and stuff. Was there rivalry? What was the interaction with other crews like?
All right, so let me just correct one thing. I'm not one of the founders of Rocksteady, although I've led Rocksteady through most of its life. You know, the founders are Jimmy D and Jimmy Lee, so I want to just give them their respect. You know, I don't like taking false props. But in terms of crews, by the time I was getting good in 79, for the most part, those crews started to dissipate. People got a little bit older. They were going to Job Corps. They were going to graduating from high school or whatever. The retirement age for a B-boy back then was about 16.
Dang.
So you're looking at me getting better and coming up with some original moves, and now I'm hungry. I'm just like, yo, now I got to find people that I've heard about, don't even know what they look like, and find out where they could possibly be on a particular day. And I run up on them in front of their building, at their girlfriend's sweet 16. It didn't matter. I'll roll up on you, be like, yo, you X, Y, and Z, word, you break. All right, word, you want to battle right here? And we just hit it right there on the concrete, or we go into a tenement building. So me doing that, and I don't like to pat myself on the back for anything, but, you know, I'm recognized as a person who brought breaking back to life when it was dying, because of that little mission of like, kind of like the martial arts films, where you go around, you're like, your style's very good, but what about mine? You know, and
right.
I was doing stuff like that led to people wanting to be down with me having my own, ending up with my own division of Rocksteady crew, and kind of like being like the Borg in Star Trek, and grabbing all these people and making them part of my thing. And the thing that made it special is that some of those people ended up breaking off and forming other crews. And crew members would be like, yo, that's whack. This dude just stepped off over here and started another crew to go against us. And I'm like, yo, that's good. That is feeding the community. It's growing the community. We need more people like that. I don't care. It means that we now have more people to battle.
Right, exactly.
So I've always looked at it as the positive when things like that happen, because, you know, it took a while for crews to really grow in a much larger way outside of the Bronx.
Yeah, I would imagine that it was very like New York specific and Bronx specific for a really long time before it started branching out. And you mentioned it, Crazy Legs. You are credited. You invented several moves that are just like commonly a part of breaking and b-boy culture today. How did you go about inventing brand new moves?
I think within dance, when you have the idea of creating something and you stumble upon something else while you're trying to create, and I'm not saying I'm a genius, but the genius, if I'm looking at someone else, is recognizing that on your way to doing something, you stumbled upon something else. Put that other something to the side, focus on the new thing, because you already know that other thing you can get back with. You already have that idea in your head. Focus on the new possibility, and that really takes a lot of practice, meaning like a lot of trial and error, spending hours in there, and sometimes waiting for a mistake to happen.
Right.
And that's how those moves happen. Just a lot of practice and stumbling upon things.
Talking to Crazy Legs, one of the innovators and OGs of breaking. It'll be at the Summer 2024 Olympics. We're going to get into that in a little bit, but I'm just so curious about the history, man. And that's just, you grew up in New York in such an awesome time, such a creative time where all these different art forms are blossoming. And obviously when any art form bursts onto the scene, there's always going to be some derision from like already established genres. And I would imagine doubly so in the kind of stuffy world that dancing can be at times. So I'm curious, what was the mainstream reaction to the emergence of breaking when you guys first started? And I would imagine, and from what I've read, it was a little bit different, the reaction in the U.S. than it was internationally.
I think the fact that we were already coming out of the disco era and hip hop was starting to get more of a shine in '79. No, I'm not trying to rhyme, but
yeah. Hey, it's in your blood.
and the fact that there was a genesis between the reggae crowd, the punk rock crowd, and what was eventually be known as hip hop. That was happening in 1980, 81, 82, and I think because we started appreciating each other and the music that came from each group, made the light shine brighter on everything that we were, from different communities. And then when you're looking at that whole disco era ending, what's the next thing? The next thing was hip hop, so I would say we were embraced by the arts community. And the thing is that when you're looking at this style of dance, you're looking at something that is a useful thing. You're looking at something that when a child sees this dance, they're already trying to emulate it because it does put out an amazing amount of a vibe, a competitiveness, creativity. And it's kind of, what we've done, it has always been anti-establishment and representative of our voice speaking through our bodies. So it's very much, I guess, catering to, especially for black and brown people, our indigenous natures.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I just think it's so cool how something like dance could bring so many different cultures together, especially in a place like New York. That's just, the big melting pot and everything like that. I just think it's such a cool time to have come up and seen all of this blossoming into the fully fledged, like beautiful art forms that they are today. And obviously the ascension of breaking goes hand in hand with the ascension of hip hop, like you've been talking about. And in fact, some of our listeners might not even know, like when hip hop was founded, there was considered to be 4 pillars of hip hop. There was MCing, of course, doing the actual rapping. There's DJing, but then graffitiing and breakdancing were also considered pillars of hip hop, like part of its very foundation and core. But to me, these days, it kind of seems like graffiti and breakdancing have fallen by the wayside when it comes to being essential parts of the hip hop experience. Do you agree? And if you don't, like, how do you feel about breaking being a part of the pillars of hip hop and being a part of hip hop culture today?
Okay. So just by default, all these things came together. There was no grand plan.
Right.
DJs threw parties, and we congregated as people in the streets who were already creatives. But, when people, number one, the word hip-hop is just is an umbrella name for all four elements.
Yeah.
Did things splinter off? Yeah, they did splinter off within the music industry. But when you go to these jams that still exist today and you have thousands of people at them, you're looking at people who are true hip-hop heads who recognize every element of hip-hop. And you'll see, like, even for my festival coming up in August, we'll have graffiti, breaking, DJing, MCing. When I throw an event, I throw a hip-hop event. When the industry throws a hip-hop event, it's really a rap event. So the average person doesn't even know that their definition of hip-hop is not of its origins.
No, 100%. And I totally get that. Like when it's live, when you're seeing it, when you're a part of it live, that all of it comes together. It makes me a little bit sad that a lot of people in the mainstream sense don't recognize graffitiing and breaking as influential as it was on hip hop culture as it has been, because clearly it's all going hand in hand.
Don't get it twisted. There are a lot of very successful artists and a lot of successful dancers. Don't think that we didn't figure it out. We found a way. It's just a unity that within the industry that looks weird.
Right.
You know, it's like mad funny style, because a lot of those people really believe that they are hip-hop heads and they're just rap heads. And that's not even to be judgmental, because, yo, do you, man.
Yeah.
If you're dope at that. But, you know, at least know that what's coming out your mouth makes no sense to someone who actually knows.
100%. And you're somebody that definitely knows. You're an OG in the game, man. You've been doing it pretty much your whole life, like you said, since you were 9 years old, which is just mind-blowing to me. And you're still doing it to this day.
10
years old. 10 years old. Okay, but you're still doing it to this day, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, So here's the funny thing. There's always this discussion about who's a pioneer, who's not, who's a legend, and all that nonsense, and who came in when, as if hip-hop was created in one day, which is impossible.
Right.
You know, even back then, if I started in 77, we're only looking at maybe 2 years at best that you have full-fledged elements really coming together. Did they exist separately? Some of them existed definitely separately before rap came about. Were there other forms of rap in other cultures, different contexts? Yes. But, you know, when it comes to what was going on back then, if you're looking at generationally, am I one of the first generation B-boys? I would say yes, but in hip-hop, some people have selective self-serving definitions of the word generation so that they can separate themselves. But it's like, yo, dude, if you do that, then I have to point out that what you did was remedial at best, and you never did what I did. So are we rocking on this together and share the history? Or do we want to separate, and then I got to point out how whack you were?
Yeah, you got to do the knowledge, man. You got to learn the history of the things that you love, for sure. And you were one of the
Don't get it twisted. I love celebrating, even if they came 2 years before me, and even if what they did was super basic. You know, that's important. It's important. And I will never, ever disregard that.
For sure, but you also got to get your respect too, as somebody that was there and has been there and done that, right? You got to take it if they ain't gonna give it to you, right?
You know, and you got to pick and choose your battles. You can't entertain the trolls. You know, if you entertain the trolls, you're platforming the words that are going against you, and you may as well just shoot yourself in the head if you're gonna do that. And I'm not telling anyone to shoot themselves in the head, but, you know, metaphorically.
I get what you're saying, man. Trust me. As a black man on radio in Minnesota, trust me, I get what you're saying. You cannot pay attention. Yeah. You can't fight every single battle, man. Otherwise, you ain't going to have no knuckles in your cartilage.
Yeah, and fighting certain battles in the industry, you can lose work in the industry. So pick your battles wisely. There's a lot of people trying to jump on and troll anything, and just to have a voice in something because they feel like, oh, that'll be good for getting my name out. And it's like, yo, you're actually part of the problem, man. So, you know, I try to stay away from a lot of those things. I'm not saying I'm perfect, because I've definitely been guilty for shouting people out and when I should have just shut up.
For sure. We're all guilty of it, man. We're all human. It happens sometimes.
Yeah.
It happens sometimes, man. And you, like, when you were still coming up with the Rocksteady crew, I mean, you guys had like hit songs that were, you know, topping the charts and everything like that. You were featured in several movies, Wild Style, Beat Street, Flashdance. Like, what was that whole experience of being on Hollywood sets with bigwig actors and directors like?
When you take a person from the hood who is only trying to be a dope B-boy, meet girls, and be competitive, and you throw them in that situation, we don't know how to deal with it, and sometimes we don't even know how to embrace it. And then when you lose it for a moment, you realize, like, oh, wow, like, that was cool, but what happened? Because now, you know, I was walking in through the door real quick, and now I'm on the line. So there was some humbling for all of us back then until we figured it out and then got our names back out there and said, okay, well, we're going to approach it differently this time and figure out the business of it.
Yeah, I would imagine, because you were a shorty, man. You were really young when you guys were so influential. I would imagine that kind of, no matter how much you tried to not let it kind of has got to get to your head a little bit, right? You're like, I mean, you're a young cat, and you're on TV, you're on the movies, you're dancing on David Letterman. Well,
here's the thing: we did a lot of firsts, which were great. Me and Frosty Freeze were the first B-boys to ever go on tour in 1981. And then, you know, we did the first hip-hop tour in 1982, the first curated hip-hop tour.
Dang.
We also did the first curated hip-hop shows in Manhattan. I was also the first person to give crews like New York City Breakers and Dynamic Rockers their first gigs, you know? And, you know, to be more specific, it's like, you know, when you see us battling Dynamic Rockers in Style Wars, that was because I invited them to battle us, because Henry Chalfant was doing his documentary, and he was like, Legs, I want to film you guys. I'm like, all right, cool, we got a battle, come film this. And then New York City Breakers, when we first started doing clubs, I went to school with some of them, and I was like, yo, boom, come on, come do this battle with us at this nightclub. Everybody gets paid. You know, we get paid like $50 or whatever it was for doing what we did. But, you know, it's good to be able to look back and say, wow, you know, not only was I the first to perform, you know, on those kinds of platforms, but I was also able to open doors for other crews, whether they were our rivals or not.
Yeah, no, for sure, and that's just, again, speaking to that nature of the dancing and bringing all these different kinds of cultures and all these different kinds of people from all these different kinds of walks of life together, and it's a super cool thing to see, man. And you've mentioned it a couple times about battling. Like, what is the difference if you're just breaking with your boys compared to like doing it competitively or battling?
Adrenaline and your preparation. And here's the crazy thing: breaking with your boys, you could come up with some funny stuff, you know, and practicing and goofing around. You can come up with funny and good stuff. But going against your rivals means, you know, there's a threat to your status. And as men, status is important to us. And if that status is chipped away at, or there's an attempt at it by another crew, you're going to prepare. You go into war, and you want to make sure that, you know, that floor is yours until someone takes it from you. And if they take it from you, you know, lose it with dignity and go out like a warrior.
Right. But I'm sure that a lot of people didn't do that, though, right? Is there sometimes?
No, back then, it's all we had. It's all we had. We were self-disciplined, which was amazing because we didn't have our parents teaching us or taking us to some dance schools. So we knew that as a crew or extended family that we had to protect the family name. And if you lost a battle, you know, you don't want that on your resume. And if you do, it better be a good loss.
Right, you better put up a fight.
Like if you know who Gabriel Rosado is, he doesn't have the best boxing record.
Right.
But he has some of the best ever fights you could ever watch.
You a boxing head? I love boxing, man. That's my favorite sport.
Yes, I'll be going to boxing gym as soon as I get off the phone.
It's hand in hand, though, right? It's the same type of preparation, fighting and
well, that's
and breaking.
My first love. Boxing and baseball are my first loves before dance.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. Which is crazy because you've been doing it for your whole life, so it hit you really young then. So
I was supposed to go with the rest of the kids in my neighborhood to the Junior Olympics, but since we didn't have the money, I couldn't afford the registration fee of like $12-14 back then. So I ended up sticking with breaking after a while because I didn't have those issues. All you needed was a pair of sneakers.
Right. And sometimes I'm sure there's some people that probably did it without this pair of sneakers.
Hey, trust me, man. I was that dude. When I would come home, my moms would be like, "What are you doing out there, walking on rocks all day?" Because my sneakers would be beat up. I was that kid in the streets who had the back of the sneaker looking like a mouse.
Right, it's talking back to you.
Talking back to me, man, making fun of me. But, whatever. Everyone got their shots in on each other. It's all good. We were tough like that.
Couple more questions for Crazy Legs, one of the OGs and innovators of breaking. You mentioned that you weren't able to make it to the Junior Olympics as a shorty, but now breaking is at the 2024 Summer Olympics in Paris. It's the newest edition. I don't even think almost everybody that I've mentioned it to didn't even know that it's a thing. How does the scoring work? What is the criteria? How is the Olympic breaking going to be different than how you were doing it when you were coming up?
The Olympic breaking, let's be honest, it's the Olympics. It's not a thing that's run by black and brown people, so the edge and the essence will not be there the way it would normally be. And I would say that has a lot to do with who is or who isn't consulting. But by the same token, you want to wish all these young people the best. The unfortunate thing, the unfortunate thing is that breaking was selected for the 2024 Olympics, but when the Olympics comes to the United States, the U.S. Olympic Committee turned its back on breaking.
What?
Which is crazy because France picks something that doesn't come from its country, and then when it's the U.S.'s turn, the U.S. turns its back on it for 2028. Does the judging system and all these other things that we would like to see happen matter? Yeah, but only if it's going to continue, because otherwise it's just one and done, and we have to continue to make sure that we support, all these other promoters who throw events like the UK B-Boy Champs and all these other events. And I say this all the time, like people have to understand that basketball is in the Olympics, but the Olympics will never be the NBA.
Right.
The same way the breaking's in the Olympics, but the Olympics will never be the cultural essence of what we do as a people.
So it's a version of breaking, but not the breaking not the same spirit and vibe and energy that you would see if you went to one of these events.
Right. And I can't sit here and say that I've looked at the judging system, and when it does come to a judging system, how do you account for what we feel and see as a people when it comes to soul and vibe and flavor? Like when you see something, it's like when you hear a beat, man, you can't figure it out, but it gives you ugly face, and it's like, oh, damn, that's oh, wow, play that again. It's just the same thing with a person dancing and responding to music. You kind of like watch them, and you're fine. They all have the visual dynamics, but there's that one person who is doing the same thing as everyone else, but does it so funky and so soulful. And that's the intangibles that they have to allow for it to happen, that you can't create a name for it, and you can't create a scoring for it. It's a heart thing.
Well, that's kind of
that's when your judges have to be as real as they come.
That's kind of what I was wondering too, Crazy Legs, is just like, how do you even quantify something like that? Something that's so subjective, something that's so personal and can mean the same type of dance or the same type of music can mean something completely different to one guy as it is the next. So that's why I was curious. Like, I'm happy to see it on such a big stage, but I'm curious as to how that judging is even going to work. I feel like things are going to get real wacky, or funny style, as y'all call it over there in New York.
It's never going to be perfect, but if you have a person judging who has never danced on beat but does visually acrobatic, amazing moves, that person should not be judging. That person should be dope with or without the big moves that really are visually dynamic. When you have people like that, judges will look at each other and not even have to talk about the word. You'll be like, word, I know why we all know why we chose that person. He had that it factor that you can't explain. And if it's like those things. If I got to explain it to you, you're never going to understand.
Exactly. It's something you just got to feel, man. It's just got to be, like you said, it's soul. It's not something that you can really quantify or put a number on. It's got to be something that you feel. Let's hope that we could if it does get beyond the 2028, if it comes back in 2032 in Brisbane, let's hope we could get you on the panel judging, man.
You know what? I'm going to tell you, I'll be honest right now. The Olympics doesn't really allow for people to leverage their situation in terms of working for the Olympics in a way that would benefit them financially. It's very limiting. I'd rather work outside of it with outside sponsors or corporations so that I could be a free agent, speak freely, be branded however I want, not be subjected to any kind of blackouts with branding, and, continue to elevate my business. We shouldn't have to shut down business just because of the Olympics.
No, I totally feel that. And then speaking of that, you got you're Puerto Rican. You're a proud Puerto Rican. You got an event coming up in Puerto Rico. You want to talk about that for a second?
No. Wait, I'm Puerto Rican, but let's get one thing straight. What makes a Puerto Rican is also part being African. My hair grows into an afro for a reason. My great grandmother's a Moor. So
right.
As a Puerto Rican, I always like to recognize that I am Afro-Latino.
No, I appreciate that, man. I got this. I'm rocking the afro right now, man.
I saw your picture, man. So here's the thing. What your question was again? My event. My event. It's an event. It's called Puerto Rock Steady. Puerto Rock meaning black people in New York back in the days would call Puerto Ricans Puerto Rocks, and then my crew, Rock Steady Crew, is Rock Steady Crew. So I just combined the words and put Puerto Rock Steady. Because it's like the hip hop version. It's that hybrid kind of situation where it's not a Puerto Rican event because you go there and you see MCs and graffiti and DJing, but you also see the environment of all these Latinos who are a part of the same community as black people, and it's a coming together of all of us. This isn't about Puerto Rico or anything. Our give back, we call ourselves a party with a purpose because we do give back. We help farmers in Puerto Rico. We're going to be giving to arts communities in Patterson, New Jersey, as well as Houston. And, we have a 2% surcharge on the checkout of buying tickets, where 100% of that money will be going towards organizations, 100%. And, we got Big Daddy Kane performing.
Oh, dope.
A lot of legacy artists like Melly Mel, Craig G, Rozelle, Supernatural, Cold Crush Brothers. And our headliners will be announced next week. And I guarantee you, hip-hop is fully alive. And when people hear this lineup of headliners, they're going to be blown away.
Man, I'm looking forward to that. Thank you so much for joining us today, Crazy Legs. I got 500 million more questions for you, but we got to take a break here. Hopefully we can have you on again sometime.
Yeah, tell them to, please, prsfest.com and go get your tickets.
For sure, man. And where can the people find you on social media real quick?
Crazy Legs BX on all platforms.
Appreciate you, Crazy Legs. That is Richard Crazy Legs Coron, one of the OG innovators of breaking. Can't wait to see that at the 2024 Summer Olympics. We got much more around the corner. This is 9 to noon on the Fan. Max Fuller filling in for PA.
Find our Mall of America street team all summer long out at our events. Ask about the Mall of America mystery cards where everyone is a winner. And see where we'll be next. KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Super short segment here because I went long. I'm just so fascinated with the history of hip-hop and breakdancing and everything like that. I went super long with Richard Crazy Legs Coron, talking to him about breakdancing ahead of the 2024 Olympics and breakdancing's Olympic debut. Brett Blakemore, real quick, what's something that isn't an Olympic sport, but if it was, you'd be a gold medalist? Because for me, it's not running track in general, not like a 40-yard dash or a 100-yard dash or anything like that, but specifically running to go catch the bus when you are late. I mean, like, just normally, I'm decently fast, but when I'm about to be late for the bus, I turn into Usain Bolt. I mean, like, it's
you
like.
turn into Spider-Man from Spider-Man 1.
Basically, yeah. It's like sometimes I'm running past people when I'm late for the bus. I'm like, dang, I don't know Sonic the Hedgehog grew an afro. I mean, I'm speedy, man. My legs are doing the Scooby-Doo circles. What's something that's not an Olympic sport that if it was, you'd be a gold medalist?
Well, golf is an Olympic sport, but if there was an event for hitting a great drive and then shanking your next shot, I think I'd be a gold medalist at that. Yeah, maybe with a splash of esports in there as well. I think this new game, X Defiant, I could go places.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm working hard.
You, the listener, I'm curious what your thoughts are. What is something that isn't an Olympic sport that you'd be a gold medalist in if it wasn't? Text us 64686 and text us if you have any questions for Tom Schreier of ZoneCoverage.com. We're going to be talking to him about Twins, Vikings, and much, much more just around the corner. Final hour of 9 to noon coming at you next.